The first question comes from Anatta, who says, how important is environment to spiritual well-being? Can a toxic workplace inhibit spiritual growth? Is it great that it fosters growth by bringing ego triggers up?
Well, the answer to that question would depend on the level of consciousness that you have reached. At the ego level, for most beings, almost any environment these days will be toxic, because you can hardly avoid dealing with toxic egos. And by toxic, we mean throwing negative projections and sabotaging and raging, abusing, etc., etc. All the ways that most organizational life has been perverted and corrupted, and family life, for that matter, into that kind of sadomasochistic relationality. So if you have reached soul consciousness, it won't disturb you. You'll learn from it. And because the world is a dream, it's not simply a self-standing, objective reality. That's the problem, is that it's seen that way. When your consciousness rises into non-duality, you will perceive that environment very differently. And what had been, let's say, perceived as toxic will actually be perceived as nectar, as beautiful, still requiring perhaps intervention, but there will be a recognition of the perfection of that particular situation, event, let's say, a womb in which one's Buddha nature is forced to grow in the same way that a pearl grows from an irritation in the oyster, right? So in that way, I think it can actually be a blessing, and will be, the more that one is attuned to the root cause of the anxiety and not projecting it all on the environment. Okay, but seeing that there's always, at the very least, a 50-50 split between subject and object, and that they are actually mirrors of one another. Okay, so I hope that's helpful.
There's one from Freda who asks, how does one drop anxiety when faced with the everyday tasks of basic survival in a crazy world?
Well, the way you do that, first of all, is to realize that you have chosen to be in this crazy world, and there's a certain way in which you love that craziness, and if you know how to surf the craziness, you will actually be able to turn it into divine madness and incredible creativity. Because it will force you to think outside the box and how to deal with it. Because otherwise, you'll explode. Literally, being driven crazy is a way to force yourself to reach a higher level of consciousness. And so long as you can recognize the unreality of the world, the fictional nature of the world, then you can appreciate the intelligence of the author of this incredible holographic movie, who has created this as the final scene in order to motivate what would otherwise be a very deadened feeling in the soul that would otherwise not want to ascend to a higher level. But the world is such that almost everyone is now thinking, beam me up, I got to get out, stop the world, I want to get off. All of those kinds of cliches that were made into movies in some cases, this is now the reality. But how do you get out? You can't, the lower death drive is not recommended. Suicide or drug use or blacking out, that's unconsciousness is not the way. But superconsciousness will not only get you liberated from the craziness, but will make it all make sense in a totally astonishing way. Okay? And that's interesting because that's how the Vatulanatta Sutra ends. It starts with you have to have the courage to dive into the craziness that is your own mind, ultimately. And when you reach the understanding of your own consciousness, the understanding of who you really are and what you are that your ego is clueless about, you will be in a state of total astonishment. And for Vatulanatta, and that word, that name means the Lord of the whirlwind, and he's really talking about when the world becomes a whirlwind of craziness, that will bring you into what he calls the Mahavismaya Mudra, which means a mudra is like a pose or an attitude or a position, right? A state of maximum great astonishment. And the astonishment is at the realization of the infinite mind that is not only dreaming all of this, but is all-pervading and is bringing all of this to you as a learning of information that will cause you to realize, if you're willing to learn from it, that you are that author. You are the infinite self. That your ego was totally terrified at facing and at surrendering to. And in that astonishment, the anxiety falls away. So the opposite of anxiety is not serenity. It's amazement. It's the shock of the recognition of something that's inconceivable to the ego mind. And that total amazement and wonderment and fascination and astonishment, that state then is the portal to the absolute that is that one is astonished by, and the two are one in that final unity. Okay, I hope that's of help.
Thank you for the teaching and the retreat so far. And I was just thinking about while you were just answering the questions, how like universal the anxiety is, but that it's actually like, it has like a very taboo sense to it, where it's like, you have to pretend it's not there. And it's like, oh, I'm not anxious. And then they're anxious. I'm not. There's so much taboo to the anxiety, but it's incredibly universal. So that's pretty interesting. And then I had a question in mind, and you sort of alluded to it in this teaching. I had the question sort of lingering. I'd recently spoken with Marjiva Ma about like chakra 4 and 5, and it's kind of talking about the idea of how maybe sometimes it's not always 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, where it could be like 5 then 4.
Oh yeah,
and I think I'd
usually
spoken
is,
to you about that before, and
yes,
her main response was about courage, and and it was I was just kind of speaking about how it seems that there's so much weight in the heart, and there's so much heaviness, that you sort of do need the wisdom just as much to get to the love.
The heaviness is not actually in the heart. It's in the defenses around the heart that keep the heart closed. And so that's why it feels heavy, because it can't shine, it can't release its love. So it's like a cow that isn't going to be milked, that pressure builds up. That's the heaviness. There's too much milk that wants to come out of creativity and love and joy and all of that can't get out. So that's more the issue than the heart itself. The defenses have to be removed. One has to feel safe enough to enter into that state of chakra 4, which is love. See, courage comes from cœur, the heart, right? The heart has to be stout. It has to be strong. It has to be confident. It has to be filled with the kind of invincible faith in God and in reality and in the goodness and the safety of my consciousness in reality, right? If you're identified with the body, you'll never feel safe. But when you're in chakra 4, you realize you're the soul. You're not the body. You existed before your body was born, and your consciousness will continue after the body has expired. So the practices of most traditional religious traditions is to imagine that you're dead. Even see your body being buried in the cemetery, or cremated and incinerated, and say, okay, done. What remains? What am I when that whole bodily identity no longer exists? Who am I? And because a time will come when it doesn't exist anymore, just as there was a time before it came into apparent existence. What you are is a constancy of presence and of love and of joy and of power, of intelligence that transcends the limit of the ego's ability to access. Because that's what it is. In order for the ego to exist, it creates a bubble that's a defense against the infinite, that puts the infinite outside of itself, when the infinite is actually what you are. But if you open that bubble and let that infinite ocean of consciousness fill you, you're gone, right? You no longer exist. You are the ocean. The bubble wants to keep its little identity as long as possible. It doesn't want to pop and just realize all along I was just the whole ocean, right? It doesn't really. It thinks that that's something, a loss of something bad, rather than salvation. So the ego is terrified of the infinite, even though that's exactly what it needs. And the journey of the Kundalini rise starts with chakra 4, right? That's where it goes, because it's only when you have the courage of the heart that you can take the chakra 3 rage and turn it against the ego and turn it into wisdom. And then that'll take all of that erotic, lustful desire and turn it into love of God, and then ultimately in union, and then finally the final sweep of the Kundalini that takes the chakra 1 energy that is not sure even whether it exists or not, because it's that baby that isn't even yet a baby in the womb, a fetal incoherence that enters into the absolute purity of perfection of being that has never had to go through those traumas of birth and growth and all of the other ones that everyone has to face in life today. And that power then returns to your embodied state. But it only does that when you have activated chakra 4 and mobilized it to sublimate all of the channels to chakra 7. All right? And the importance of chakra 7 is it's the crown. It's no longer in the body. It's above the head. It's in the infinite space. It's the field. It's no longer the particle, but the wave that has become again part of the ocean, you see. And so there's no longer any fear that the bubble will pop.
So the courage to like pick up the Zen axe, does that come from?
Well,
just the
first I agree,
feeling
you
of
need
the
the
heart?
chakra 5 wisdom to say that's what I have to do. I can't get out of it. And then you need the courage to actually do it. So the wisdom will give you the aspiration and the recognition that I must do this or else I will fail in life and regret it and have to come back and try to do this next time, but I won't graduate. So one needs the wisdom, but then the courage to actually do it, no, that requires chakra 4 love. Okay? All right, thank you. May you pick up the axe this weekend and complete with one stroke your self-liberation.
Thank you. Namaste.
Namaste.